I used to think I had to do everything perfectly the first time and every time. Now I know I can do things really well, but not always perfectly. I used to think mistakes were total catastrophes. Now I know it's all part of being human. I used to think I was not lovable or acceptable unless I had it all together. Now I know what it is to love and accept others and myself without having to have it all together. I used to think I was a failure at basically everything. Now I know success comes in many forms. I used to think critical thoughts constantly. Now I know I can give myself credit for my efforts. I used to think my standards were just fine. Now I know they were unrealistic and unreasonable. I used to think everyone else should have my standards. Now I know there's something to value in everyone's way of doing things. I used to think it would take forever to recover from what I saw as a failure. Now I know I don't have to beat myself up over and over again. I used to think I had to sacrifice my time, my relationships, and my health to get something done perfectly. Now I know it's simply not worth it. I used to think my system would help me be successful. Now I know my system actually hindered my progress. I used to think my value was based on my achievements. Now I know my value is based on who I am, regardless of what I have or haven't achieved. I used to think how terrible it would be to disappoint others. Now I know I can live with it. I used to think in black and white. Now I know so much of life is lived in gray and many other amazing colors. I used to think I had to live by so many rules. Now I know I was far too rigid with myself. I used to think I could be perfect all the time. Now I know I was fooling myself. I used to think 100% was not good enough. Now I know I really skewed reality. I used to think I will only be remembered for my mistakes. Now I know there's a lot more to me than just my mistakes. I used to think forgiveness was not something I deserve. Now I know I deserve it just like anyone else. I used to think showing my vulnerabilities would lead to great ridicule. Now I know showing all sides of myself leads to greater connection and relatability. I used to think how awful it was to hear criticism. Now I know people are just expressing an opinion. I used to think about everything that went wrong. Now I can acknowledge everything that went right. I used to think that perfection meant love. Now I know I can love myself even at my worst. I used to think admitting imperfection would devastate me. Now I see how admitting imperfection totally frees me. I used to think I was fine. Now I know I was a tortured, scared soul. I used to think nothing was good enough. Now I know how and when to say, good enough. I used to think I had to be so hard on myself to get things done. Now I know I can live free of that pressure. I used to think I had to have it all together. Now I know I just need to be myself.